What's going on, everybody? Sports culture, and today I got a different type of video and mock draft. It's not a Packers mock draft, it's not a Lions mock draft, it's not a single team, it's the NFC North. So I'm going to do a mock draft, a 4-round mock draft for the NFC North. And the reason I'm making this video is because I feel like next year, and just for the next couple of years, the NFC North is going to be a very strong division, and just might be the best division in all of football. You got guys like Caleb Williams, who's going to be selected #1 pick by the Chicago Bears. And, his ceiling is a guy like Patrick Mahomes. So if Caleb Williams could be a top 10 quarterback, top 15 quarterback for the Chicago Bears, they're going to be a really good team. That defense is really, really stout. You got teams like the Lions who went to the NFC Championship game last year, and they're only going to get better. They made some really good moves this offseason. Then you got teams like the Vikings who just need a quarterback, man. The Vikings, I'd bet my house on it, are going to go out there, probably trade up, and go get a quarterback in this year's draft class. And, I think this team is one quarterback away from being a really good team. Obviously, they have a lot of dynamic players on the offensive side of the ball. Justin Jefferson, they got guys like Aaron Jones, who they just signed, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. So that offense is very explosive, and the defense, is getting better. They were actually very solid last year, and I thought they were actually going to be a terrible defense last year, but they were very, very solid. And then you got teams like the Packers, who everybody thought they were going to be really, really bad last year, being a full rebuilding year. Turned out they were really good, went to the divisional game, and gave, the #1 seed, the San Francisco 49ers, a run for the money in that game. So all of these teams have very bright futures. All of these teams could very well be, playoff contenders with the right pieces, with the right players, with the right rookies, drafted in, this year's draft class or in this mock draft that I'm about to do. So without further ado, let's get right into it, man. So here we are with the first pick, and it's the first pick of the NFL draft. The Chicago Bears hold it, and to no surprise, it's going to be Caleb Williams. I'd be shocked, man. I would be shocked if, come draft night, all these talks about Caleb Williams, basically having a playbook by now that he doesn't get drafted and they draft a guy like Drake May or JJ McCarthy. I would be super, super shocked. But, let's be honest here. It's going to be Caleb Williams, and rightfully so. I mean, he is a generational quarterback. People can say whatever they want, but the arm talent is there. The arm talent is generational. He makes, plays out of structure. And yes, you would maybe want him to play more in structure, but he already has the X factor ability of making plays out of structure, like guys like Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herberts of the world, even Jordan Loves of the world. So, you want a quarterback that can play out of structure. Obviously, you want Caleb Williams to play more in structure and more in rhythm, with the offense. And I do think, with the Chicago Bears, especially with guys like Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, all the receivers they have now, I do think he will be able to play more in rhythm. They also got guys like DeAndre Swift. So I think this offense next year is going to be very dynamic. Caleb Williams, 6'1", 215 pounds, 22 years old, very young. And as it says right here, Williams is an incredibly talented player with natural gifts even other previous QB1s do not have. His issues are more from a lack of consistency than ability in any area. This is a quarterback with franchise-changing talent that is worthy of a #1 overall selection. And like I said, he is rightfully so, worth that #1 selection. He's a very, very, generational. He's a generational player in my opinion. This year, he had only played in 12 games, 268 completions out of 394 attempts, a 68 completion percentage, 3,647 yards, 9.3 yards per attempt, 30 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. He's very good at not turning the football over, interception-wise, and then a 117.4 passer rating. So very, very good. Now, Caleb Williams had a 38.9 pressure grade, and I will admit that is all because of him. He loves to make plays out of structure. Like I said, he likes to hold on to the football too long. People like to say superhero ball, you could say, but I think at the next level, he's going to have to learn. Like I said, having the X factor of, making plays out of structure, making something out of nothing. When you look at the top quarterbacks, Josh Allen of the world, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, those guys are able to make, plays out of structure. But you would love to see Caleb Williams play more in structure at the collegiate level. He really didn't play that much in structure or more that much in rhythm with the offense. But I do think at the NFL, he's going to learn, real quick that he has to play more in rhythm and more in structure, with the team, especially, early downs, early quarters. He's going to learn that. So with this first pick, I am going to go Caleb Williams. I'm not throwing a curveball. And I don't think Ryan Poles is going to throw, a curveball come draft night. Caleb Williams, in my opinion, has the talent and will turn this team around, will turn this franchise around. It pains me to say that as a Packers fan, but I do think Caleb Williams is going to be the guy that actually turns this franchise around finally, man. All these years, this drought of having no, franchise, long-term quarterback, I think Caleb Williams is finally the guy for the Chicago Bears, and he has all the talent in the world. So I have made the trade up for the Minnesota Vikings. And I do think in real life they could probably get a quarterback at pick 11, but I do think if they want to get one of the top guys in Jaden Daniels or Drake May, they're going to have to jump the Cardinals at pick 4 and get pick 3 for the New England Patriots. I definitely think in real life this is a realistic trade. Not what I traded away, but the New England Patriots and the Minnesota Vikings traded with each other. I only gave away pick 11 and 23 in this year's draft class. I do think in real life they'd have to give up a little bit more, probably even a next year first round pick. But for this mock draft, just for this video's sake, I only give away these 2 first round picks. And I do think Drake May fits this offensive scheme very, very well. He attacks the middle of the field very, very well. And Kevin O'Connell's offensive scheme is built around attacking the middle of the field. Now, Drake May has that elite height and weight ratio you want from a quarterback. He's 6'4", 230 pounds, and this guy's only 21 years old. He's super, super young. And as it says right here, May's arm talent alone puts him in the first round and top 10 conversation. Though his ball placement and decision-making need improvement, he has all the talent tools you want to bet on as a franchise quarterback, and that's rightfully so. He has all the tools in the world. Maybe he needs to improve fundamentally and mechanically, but once he does, he's going to be a really good quarterback. Now, here are the pros for Drake May. Light on his feet, always bouncing and ready to pivot to progressions, throw, or take off. Powerful flick of the wrist leads to good velocity. Has speed for escapability and scrambles. Capable of impressive out-of-structure accuracy. Experienced middle-of-the-field passer, and that's why I think he's such a great fit for this offensive scheme that Kevin O'Connell runs. Drake May is super, super good at attacking the middle of the field. Some of his best throws are between the hashes, and he plays with great anticipation when he attacks the middle of the field. Already well-versed in pump fakes to full defenders, so those are some really good pros right there, some really good strengths. Now, here are the cons for Drake May. There are times when he just misses, which can be due to a lack of fundamentals, but sometimes he just misses throws at varying distances. Fully capable and willing to read the full field, but he is still learning where to look and when. And something else I would add right here is, I think it's more mechanics, and definitely I think at the next level he will fix. But when he drops back on his 3-step drop back, he loves to flow right or left to his right tackle or left tackle. And some people might not think that's a big thing, but at the next level, man, pass rushers are super fast at getting to the quarterback and just super good at getting to the quarterback. You're just making the gap between the pass rusher and you way smaller. And making throws while you're floating to your right or left and your feet are not set is way harder. I think that's why he misses some of his throws on film, is because he's floating to his right, his feet aren't properly set, and he's trying to make a throw to the left side of the field. So I do think at the next level, he will mechanically, learn from that. But, that is something, that I would definitely add right here for a con. Now, Drake May this year completed 269 out of his 425 attempts on passes, had a 63.3 completion percentage, had 3,608 yards, and 8.5 yards per attempt, 24 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, and a passer rating of 100.2. But in the previous year, in 2022, Drake May completed 339 of his passes out of 516, had a completion percentage of 65.7, had 4,293 yards, had an 8.3 yards per attempt, had 37 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions, and a passer rating of 109.7. So in 2022, very, very elite, and he had a lot of production to show. So at pick 3, we did trade up with the Patriots to get the Vikings as a quarterback. And like I said, I do think Drake May or J.J. McCarthy fits this offensive scheme very well for Kevin O'Connell. Both guys attack the middle of the field. And this is something that could definitely happen in real life. If they want Drake May or Jaden Daniels per se, they're going to have to jump the Cardinals at pick 4 to get pick 3 from the Patriots and then select one of the quarterbacks that they want, if it's Jaden Daniels or Drake May. But I do think, J.J. McCarthy and Drake May have to be at the top of the board for the Minnesota Vikings. Both guys, in my opinion, just fit that offensive scheme very, very well for Kevin O'Connell. So for this mock draft, we did go up and trade with the Patriots for pick 3 to get the Minnesota Vikings Drake May, and hopefully he's the franchise quarterback for them. So here we are at pick 9 for the Bears, and they could do a lot of things right here. Obviously, they could sit right here and, choose one of these prospects, but there is reports that, the Bears have been shopping pick 9, and they look to trade down and get more draft capital, which makes sense. I mean, after pick 9, they'd only have 2 picks. So with this pick right here, I am actually going to trade down. And the only teams that are really interested are the Eagles, the Packers, the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Titans. I'm not going to trade with the Packers because we're in division. And I could do the Chiefs, but they just won the Super Bowl, so we're not going to get them better. Could do the Chargers, but their pick is until pick 37. And then the Titans pick 38. So the Eagles, we're going to trade with right here. We're going to see what we could get. What do we... okay, we're going to do 22, 50, and 53. We'll see if that... So... we did trade back from pick 9 to pick 22. In return, we got pick 22, 50, and 53. Honestly, that's a very good trade back. All those are premium picks. And we can honestly rebuild and just reload for this offense and this defense for the Chicago Bears team overall. So here we are at pick 22 for the Bears. And this was a good trade back because the player I was going to select at pick 9 is still here. And that is Laiatu Latu. I think the Bears desperately need another edge rusher on the other side of Montez Sweat, we could definitely upgrade over a guy like DeMarcus Walker. And I think Laiatu is the best pass rusher in this year's draft class. Maybe doesn't have the highest ceiling, but I think Laiatu, once he enters into the league, is going to be a really productive pass rusher right off the bat. His hand usage is fantastic. He's very quick off the line, very explosive. I love his athleticism. I know people say he has, a limit on his athleticism, but I think he's fairly athletic, especially for a guy his size. And just the way he gets off the ball, you think he's around 6'3", 240 pounds. But no, he's around 6'5", 265 pounds, and he's still only 23 years old. Yes, this is someone who did stop playing football because of a neck injury in 2021 that almost ended his football career. But I think Laiatu is still the best pass rusher in this year's draft class. If he stays healthy, and he does look healthy right now, I think he's going to be super productive in the NFL. And you just can't teach, the hand usage that he has, the quick ability off the line that he has. And as it says right here, though he's somewhat limited athletically, Laiatu just lives in the offensive backfield due to his hand usage and pass rush moves that will continue to win at the NFL level. And then here are the pros and cons for Laiatu. Hands are precise, fast, and most importantly planned. Quickness and agility are a nightmare for interior offensive linemen. Vast repertoire of pass rush moves. Eyes are always in the backfield for the ball. Above average bend/corner ability. Now here are the cons for Laiatu. Length is adequate but not an advantage. First stat is adequate, but he won't be blowing by NFL tackles. His higher PFF run blocking grade is due to shooting gaps more than truly holding the line of scrimmage. Now, Laiatu this year played in 12 games, had 535 defensive snaps, 304 pass rush snaps, 210 run defense snaps, had 15 sacks, just insane numbers, 11 hits, 36 hurries, and 0 batted passes. But the previous year, he had 12 sacks, 8 hits, 45 hurries, so very, very disruptive. You love to see that right there, and then 1 batted pass. So I picked 22. We are going Laiatu, and the Bears desperately need another pass rusher on the other side of Montez Sweat. So with this pick, we're going to do that, and we're going to give them the best pass rusher, in my opinion, in this year's draft class, in Laiatu. So here we are, pick 25 for my Green Bay Packers. And, Cooper DeJean did get picked right before, so I picked 24 to the Cowboys. But, that doesn't really matter. He was going to be my pick right there. I picked 25, but it is what it is. Jer'Zhan Nguyen is my favorite defensive player in this year's draft class. I think he is the best player at the defensive side in this year's draft class. He's going to be a game wrecker in the NFL. We could definitely go Jer'Zhan Nguyen right here. You could definitely go cornerback Nate Wiggins and Cooley McKinstry are both on the board. This is honestly a tough pick right here. I don't know who I'm going to go with. I think Jer'Zhan Nguyen might be the best, value pick right here because I do think he is the best defensive player in this year's draft class. Maybe not a glaring need on the defensive line, maybe like a cornerback, but I do think, Jer'Zhan Nguyen, getting him on this defensive line, getting him on this defense would be a huge difference. So I picked 25. I have made my decision, and I'm going to go Jer'Zhan Nguyen. I just cannot pass on Jer'Zhan Nguyen. I think he is the best defensive player in this year's draft class. Maybe don't need a defensive lineman in the first round, but it wouldn't hurt. And I think Jer'Zhan Nguyen is the best defensive lineman, or just in general, the best defensive player in this year's draft class. Maybe a little undersized in terms of defensive lineman at 6'2", 295 pounds, but he is only 21 years old. And you don't find guys that have this amount of, fluidity in their hands as a defensive lineman. He's very good at using his hands, has tremendous hand usage, very fast and violent hands. And this guy is super quick off the line, and he just plays with a very violent and physical play style. Now, here are the pros and cons for Jer'Zhan Nguyen. Possesses quick handwork, feet never stop firing, experience and effective stunt/loop rusher, a motor that never stops firing, explosive first step. And then here are the cons. You can tell he is light, lacks overall flexibility for getting low or bending on a rush. High run defense grade comes more from gap shooting and disengaging blocks than truly holding the line. Top speed is limited in pursuit. Now, Jer'Zhan Nguyen this year played in 12 games, had 749 defensive snaps, 402 pass rush snaps, 347 run defense snaps, had 8 sacks, 7 hits, 28 hurries, and 2 batted passes. But in the previous year, in 2022, he had 4 sacks, 19 hits, 36 hurries, and 3 batted passes. So just very dominant these last 2 years. Very, very productive. And I think he had 24 more pressures by any defensive lineman in this year's draft class. So just way more productive than anybody else in this year's draft class in terms of defensive linemen. So I picked 25. I am going Jer'Zhan Nguyen. And yes, I could have went with a guy like Nate Wiggins or Cooley McKinstry and got us a cornerback. But I think Jer'Zhan Nguyen is the best defensive player in this year's draft class. And he's going to be a game wrecker and a stud at the next level. And I just think him on the other side of guys like Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, everybody we have on our D-line, I just think it's going to cause so much chaos and so much pressure on opposing teams. So with this pick, we are going Jer'Zhan Nguyen. I just think he's going to be a game wrecker, especially on this defensive line that we have. And then here we are, pick 29 for the Detroit Lions. And this is just the most perfect scenario for the Lions. They get, probably the cornerback 1. I know, a lot of Lions fans really like Kool McKinstry. I think the Lions have done a lot of scouting on the Alabama cornerbacks, so they just really like the Alabama guys in general. So this is the most perfect scenario for the Lions and just Lions fans in general. They get Kool McKinstry at pick 29, and I think him on the other side of Carlton Davis, Meek Robinson in the middle, and then Emmanuel Mosley whenever he is healthy. I think this is honestly a very, very good secondary. Kool McKinstry just on the other side of Carlton Davis, I think is such a lockdown, boundary cornerback duo. Kool McKinstry is listed at 6'1", 195 pounds, and is still 21 years old. Very, very, very young. And the one thing I like about Kool McKinstry the most is not just about his technique, it's about his smartness on the football field. He plays with great technique, yes, but he is just super smart, man. He is never getting out of position, and he just plays the position with so much poise. Now, here are the pros and cons for Kool McKinstry. Great balance and fluidity when backpedaling. Good but not great recovery speed. Length is a big plus for press coverage. Hands are quick and precise for disrupting receivers out of press. Nice shoulder dip reaction to avoid blocks. Comfortable and confident in island coverage. Does not fall for feet chopping or wide receivers in the releases. Quick to read screens. And then here are the cons for Kool McKinstry. Change of direction ability and agility are good but not elite for stickiness and coverage when routes are breaking. Likes to be physical, which led to some unnecessary holding and DPI penalties. Long speed is good but not elite. Could stand to be more aggressive when attacking the ball. And as it says right here, McKinstry plays one of the most difficult positions in the game with so much poise and production. He might not be an elite athlete, but he is one of the smartest cornerback prospects you'll find. He can play in any defensive scheme and is the type of player you draft in the first round. Now, McKinstry this year played in 14 games at 848 defensive snaps, 482 coverage snaps, allowed 19 receptions on 39 targets, 205 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, and a passer rating of 73.1. And like I said, Kool McKinstry is a fan favorite by many Detroit Lions fans. He gets drafted 21% by Lions fans whenever they make mock drafts. So for this mock draft, we are continuing the trend. And I think this is honestly something that could definitely happen in real life. The Packers are very high on Kool McKinstry as well. So if the Packers don't pick Kool McKinstry at pick 25, you might as well, get the jersey ready for Kool McKinstry at pick 29. So with this pick, we are going Kool McKinstry. I think, Kool McKinstry on the other side of Carlton Davis is easily one of the better, lockdown boundary cornerbacks in the NFL. So Packers fans, hear me out. I did trade back with the New Orleans Saints right here. We're picking up picks 45, 150, and 170. And in return, we give them pick 41. There is a couple players I really do want. There are some cornerbacks and safeties right here I really do want. But they don't get picked around till picks 49 to 55. So we're just going to trade back a little bit and pick up more draft capital. So here we are, pick 45 for the Packers. And with this pick, I'm going to get us a safety of the future. Someone that I think matches very well with Xavier McKinney. And that is Javon Bullard, the safety out of Georgia. This guy just plays with his hair on fire, plays with a ton of grit, a ton of physicality. Maybe not the biggest dude in the world at 5'11", 195 pounds, and 21 years old, very, very young. But this dude, as it says right here, Bullard is a versatile secondary player with a fearless mentality. Though he isn't an elite athlete, his competitiveness, quickness, and tackling ability project him to be a starting role as a nickel defender. Now, here are the pros and cons for Javon Bullard. Experienced and successful slot defender, fearless tackler for his size, fiery competitor who does not back down from any assignment. And then the cons are recovery speed is good but not elite. Over-aggressive pursuit angles cause him to be out of control at times. Much more comfortable playing in the slot than coming from depth. Now, Javon Bullard does get drafted 38% by Packers fans whenever they make mock drafts. For this mock draft, we are continuing that trend. I think Javon Bullard is the best safety in this year's draft class, and I think him on the other side of Xavier McKinney is going to be one of the best, pass coverage safety duos in all of football. Javon Bullard might not get all the interceptions or, pass breakups in the world, but one thing, Javon Bullard does very, very well is he's very good at recognizing route concepts and just reading the football field, and he just locks down one side of the football field very, very well. He's a very physical safety. He comes downhill, and when he hits you, he makes you feel it. So with this pick, at pick 45, we are going Javon Bullard, who I think is the best safety in this year's draft class. So here we are, pick 50 for the Bears, and this to me is more of a luxury pick. So with this pick, I don't think this team needs to go wide receiver super early, but it wouldn't hurt to get another guy in that room. Obviously, they have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, who are going to be a top wide receiver duo next year. But with this pick, we're going to go more of a project player at the wide receiver position, someone that definitely needs to be developed, and that is Keon Coleman, the wide receiver out of Florida State. This dude has all the athletic tools you want from a wide receiver. Is 6'4", 215 pounds, and is only 20 years old. He's super, super young. He has a lot of time to develop and learn from guys like Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. And he needs to definitely improve in terms of route running. So why not pair him with a guy like Keenan Allen, who's one of the best at running routes? And like I said, and the reason I like this pick is because, Caleb Williams is going to be the franchise quarterback for this team for many years. So why not get a young wide receiver in Keon Coleman, who does need to be developed, but if developed right, could be a top 10, maybe even top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. pairing up Keon Coleman with Caleb Williams for many years could be a very dynamic quarterback and wide receiver duo. Now, here are the pros and cons for Keon Coleman. Very impressive athlete for his player size. He is very explosive and strong. Some of the most impressive contested catches you'll see. Active and strong hands when lined up against press coverage. For as athletic as he is, not a big yards after catch receiver. Lack of separation is an issue. Contested catches are a strength, but every catch seems to be contested. And the other con here for Keon Coleman, limited route tree and basic vertical stem. And something I will say right here is this Florida State offensive scheme really wasn't helping him out. They just had him running out go routes, hook routes, and curl routes. So it really didn't help him out in terms of, seeing how good he is as a route runner. So like I said, pick 50 to me is more of a luxury pick because we did the trade back. So with this pick, we're going to get a project player at the wide receiver position and a player that could definitely grow with Caleb Williams for many years and be a dynamic quarterback and wide receiver duo in the NFL. So Bears fans, I have traded down with the Jets. We're going from pick 53 to 72, picking up 111 and 134. I was trying to trade down, finally get a better trade down package for one of these other teams. But no one was really budging. I was trying to get actually really two high premier picks still in the top 100, but no one was budging. So it is what it is. We trade away from picks 53 to 72, pick up 111 and 134. So here we are, pick 58 for the Packers, and we definitely need to make a decision right here. We definitely need to address cornerback, and TJ Tampa and Ennis Rakestraw Jr. are still on the board. Definitely could use a tackle or a guard like Kyron Amagaji. This guy, I've drafted him before in multiple mock drafts for the Green Bay Packers. I really like this guy a lot. If developed right, he's going to be a nasty run blocker in the NFL. And then Adrian Cooper's on the board, who's a lot of Packers fans, linebacker one in this year's draft class. I think with this pick, though, I am going to go Adrian Cooper. I think the first three picks, getting a guy like Jerzon Newton, who has a very violent and physical play style, then getting a guy like Javon Bullard, who plays with his hair on fire, then getting a guy like Adrian Cooper, who's very violent, very solid on the sideline, has a very physical play style, and this guy reminds me a lot like Patrick Queen. I think just getting those three guys off the rip gives us a huge impact on our defense, and maybe just might be that, that boltering boost we need on the defensive side to actually get over that hump and be one of the top 5 defenses in the league. I think Adrian Cooper next to Quay Walker could be a very, very scary linebacker duo and one of the best. Adrian Cooper is listed at 6'3", 230 pounds, and is 22 years old, very, very young still. Here are the pros and cons for Adrian Cooper. Downhill player who is willing to take on blocks at the line of scrimmage. Top-tier athlete and change of direction, burst, and long speed. Effective blitzer. Now, here are the cons for Adrian Cooper. Can be manipulated by pre-snap motion and play action, which is honestly a big one because a lot of NFL offenses nowadays do a lot of pre-snap motion. For example, our offense, we do a lot of pre-snap motion and heavy play action. So, Adrian Cooper does get out of position when those things happen, and he does look a little lost. That is one red flag. I think at the next level, he could definitely develop and, work on that aspect. Out of control sometimes, takes a step too far in one direction and overcommits, reacts more than he anticipates. And as it says right here, Cooper has length and athleticism to be a starting caliber linebacker in the NFL in a downhill role. His lack of anticipation and instincts for deeper coverage work will likely keep him from being picked in the first round. Adrian Cooper this year played in 12 games, had 609 defensive snaps, 83 pass rush snaps, 254 run defense snaps, 272 coverage snaps, had 58 tackles, 17 assisted tackles, and 11 missed. Now, Adrian Cooper gets drafted 31% by Packers fans whenever they make mock drafts. Like I said earlier, he is a fan favorite to many Packers fans, and he is most Packers fans' linebacker one in this year's draft class. He's my linebacker one as well in this year's draft class. So for this mock draft, we are continuing that trend. I think, with our first 3 picks, we get a bunch of violent, physical players on the defensive side of the ball that make a huge impact. So here we are, pick 61 for the Lions. And I'm going to take a gamble right here. I think they definitely need an edge rusher, but they definitely could use a guard inside. Graham Glosso wasn't that good. So I'm going to take Christian Hayes right here, and we're going to hope one of the edge rushers in Jonah Alice or Chris Broswell or Marcus Nealon fall to us at pick 61 so we can select him, or I might trade up in a little bit and go get one of those guys. But with this pick, we are going Christian Hayes. Like I said, Graham Glosso was very average last year for this team. Allowed over like 40 pressures. Only allowed 2 sacks, which is okay, but wasn't the greatest run blocker. Really didn't move people left or right or downfield, and isn't the greatest pass blocker because he allowed 40 pressures or over 40 pressures. So with this pick, we are going to go Christian Hayes. He is an older prospect and maybe isn't the biggest dude for a guard at 6'2", 313 pounds, and 24 years old. But this guy plays with a great amount of power, has great hand placement as a guard. He knows where to put his hands, and he plays with great leverage for a guard as well. Now, here are the pros and cons for Christian Hayes. Makes for a great puller and zone blocker. Overall athleticism is above average. First step is better than top speed. consistent and strong hand placement to control and throw defenders. Like I said, he has really good hand placement. He knows where to put his hands so he can make, the best out of his power and his athleticism and just move defenders left and right. Properly distributed weight, good mass in lower half, ideal build for an interior lineman, short and height for leverage, but above average weight and arm length. And here are the cons for Christian Hayes. Not nearly as effective when blocking up the middle in man/gap, then as a puller or on a zone blocking play. Doesn't sit in pass protection like he needs to. Balance can be an issue. Now, Christian Hayes this year played in 12 games, had 802 offensive snaps, 362 run block snaps, 438 pass block snaps, allowed 1 sack, 1 hit, and 10 hurries. But in the previous year, he was even more dominant, played in 13 games, 807 offensive snaps, 459 run block snaps, 348 pass block snaps, allowed 0 sacks, 1 hit, and 2 hurries. So very, very dominant in 2022. Now, Christian Hayes does get drafted 18% by Lions fans whenever they make mock drafts. So for this mock draft, we are continuing the trend. And I think he fits this offensive scheme very well for Detroit. This guy's very physical. He's a very good run blocker. And he just moves people left and right, which is very good for this offensive scheme and just this team in general. So with this pick, we are going Christian Hayes, the guard out of Kentucky. So, Lions fans, I done goofed. When I was clicking out to go select Christian Hayes, I accidentally pressed on Chris Boswell, and he was actually the guy I was going to trade up to go get because I think Chris Boswell really matches well with this defensive scheme and just the demeanor and physicality that Detroit plays with. This guy is very quick off the line, very athletic. Might not be super technical, but he has all the athletic traits you want from a guy. And I do like his height compared to other guys like Marshall Nealon and Jonah Alice. I didn't mean to click on him. It was going to be Christian Hayes at that pick. With this pick, after we traded up with the Cardinals at 66, I am going to pick Christian Hayes. But real quick, I'm going to talk about Chris Boswell. Listed at 6'3", 255 pounds, 22 years old. And as this way, even if he doesn't become a pass rush technician, Boswell's power, speed, and length give him the floor of a rotational pass rusher and the ceiling of an impact starter. Now, Chris Boswell this year had 13 sacks, 10 hits, 33 hurries, and 0 batted passes. But in the previous year, he had 4 sacks, 5 hits, and 21 hurries. So very disruptive, and that's what you like to see. This year, he had an 18.2 pass rush win rate. And I think he's the better run defender out of guys like Jonah Alice and Marshawn Nealon. So I think overall, maybe not the best pass rusher out of the three, but I do think he fits the defensive scheme for Detroit maybe a little bit more because he's a willing and better, run tackler and just better in run defense. Now, Chris Boswell does get drafted 18% by Lions fans, and he was going to be the guy I was going to trade up for, but I did end up selecting him at 61 because I messed up. So with this pick at 66 now, I'm going to select Christian Hayes. So very, very good, draft so far for the Lions. They get a guy in Cooley McKinstry the first round, get a pass rusher in Chris Boswell right here, and then get a guy in Christian Hayes who just solidifies their offensive line. So very, very good draft for the Lions so far. So here we are at pick 72 for the Bears. And this has gone pretty perfectly for the Bears right now because I picked 72. I was actually going to maybe trade up so I could ensure that I get Brandon Dorless, but he's still here at pick 72. And I think Brandon Dorless is just a phenomenal fit for this Bears defensive scheme and just for this defensive line. I think Brandon Dorless is super underrated, and this guy's super versatile. You don't know what he's going to be at the next level. He's 6'3", 290 pounds, and 23 years old, and you really don't know what Brandon Dorless is going to be. Is he going to be a defensive tackle? Is he going to be a DN? He's just super explosive, super powerful, and I love his hand usage when he gets to the quarterback. Now, Brandon Dorless this year had an 82.1 true pass rush grade and had a 10.5 pass rush win rate. Maybe isn't the greatest run defender right now, but his hand usage is super nice for a defensive lineman. I do think he'll improve in that aspect. Brandon Dorless this year played in 14 games, had 587 defensive snaps, 384 pass rush snaps, 198 run defense snaps, had 4 sacks, 7 hits, and 35 hurries. Very disruptive. That's what you love to see. And 6 batted passes, man, which is my favorite thing about that. 6 batted passes, very disruptive. And those 6 batted passes, man, that's a huge thing. He had last year in 2022, he had 2 sacks, 4 hits, 40 hurries. So super, super disruptive up front, causing chaos up there, and that's what you want to see from a defensive lineman. And then he had 2 batted passes. And then in 2021, this guy maybe doesn't get all the sacks in the world, but he is very, very good at causing pressure, and that's very good at the next level. In 2021, he had 3 sacks, 6 hits, and 33 hurries and 1 batted pass. So very, very good each year, very productive each year. And like I said, Brandon Dorless is super versatile. You really don't know what he's going to be at the next level. I think he's more profiled as a defensive end, but I wouldn't be surprised if a team threw him at defensive tackle just because, how strong he is for a defensive lineman and how quick he is off the line and his hand usage. This guy played 253 snaps this year at the B-gap, 159 over the tackle, 160 outside the tackle, so just all over the defensive line. Now, Brandon Dolis does get drafted 16% by Bears fans whenever they make mock drafts. With this mock draft, we are continuing that trend. I think he's a great defensive scheme fit for this team. And this is just a great mock draft so far for the Bears, in my opinion. So here we are, pick 75 for the Chicago Bears. And actually, I tried trading down multiple times with different teams, but no one is trading with your boy. So at this pick, we're just going to get offensive line depth for this team. And that is Cooper Beebe, the guard out of Kansas State. And I think he fits this team very, very well. I think the weak holes of this offense, or the offensive line in general for the Bears, is the interior. So Cooper Beebe is a very good offensive guard in this year's draft class, and he has the versatility to play all over the offensive line. And I think, like I said earlier, the Bears' biggest weakness on the offensive line is the interior. Now, Cooper Beebe is listed at 6'4", 335 pounds, and is 22 years old. He has a great height and weight ratio for the guard position. And it says right here, Beebe's high football IQ should lead him to a long NFL career. Unfortunately, his athletic shortcomings will likely limit that career to that of being a backup swing lineman. And here are the pros and cons for Cooper Beebe. He brings a high football IQ and displays a great understanding of angles, leverage, and timing. Versatile lineman with experience at all three spots on the line. Hands are well placed and effective. Can effectively move defenders when he maintains a good pad level / leverage. Good size and technique to anchor straight bull rushers. And then here are the cons for Cooper Beebe. Below average athlete, lets defenders get across his face too easily and struggles to recover. Feet are heavy to recover versus twitchier pass rushers. Slow off the ball, doesn't convert speed to power consistently. Now, Cooper Beebe this year had an 81.2 zone grade, had a 76.0 gap grade, had a 90.4 pass block grade, had a 91.1 true pass set pass block grade, played in 13 games this year, had 942 offensive snaps, 486 run block snaps, 456 pass block snaps, 2 sacks, 0 hits, and 7 hurries. But in the previous year, he played in 14 games, had 940 offensive snaps, 504 run block snaps, 436 pass block snaps, allowed 0 sacks, 2 hits, and 7 hurries. So very, very productive these last 2 years and very dominant. And like I said, Cooper Beebe is very versatile. This man this year had 819 snaps at left guard, 19 at left tackle, 103 at right tackle. Then the previous year, 919 at left guard. But in 2021, had 734 at left tackle. So very versatile and can play at all 3 levels. So like I said, I was trying to trade down just so we didn't get graded a bad pick, because we're going down 20 spots basically to go get Cooper Beebe. But no team was trading with me. And I don't think there's really many holes on this team right now, except for the interior offensive line and maybe getting more depth on the D line and maybe another cornerback in the room or just another secondary player. So we could definitely look to that. But I think getting an interior offensive lineman is definitely, a priority in this year's draft for the Bears. Like I said, I think it's the biggest hole on the offensive side is their interior offensive lineman. So with this pick, we are getting Cooper Beebe, the guard out of Kansas State, who could be a starter for this, Chicago Bears offensive line. So here we are, pick 88 for the Packers, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, Packers fans, I waited this whole time to give Ronaldo Green at pick 88. His average draft position or selection, whatever it is 88, but he got selected this time at 86 to the Texans. Ronaldo Green is such a stud, man. I think he's going to be phenomenal at the next level. This guy is super patient and disciplined in man coverage. He's super good in trial technique and just really good at mirroring wide receivers' movements. I think he's going to be a stud at the next level. His budding mate, Jerrion Jones, is still on the board, though, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's still on the board at 104, I think he is. Yeah, one right here. So Jerrion Jones is still on the board. The pick is probably going to be Jerrion Jones at 104, or at pick 91. With this pick, though, I'm going to go Mason McCormick. We could definitely use some more guys on the interior offensive line. Sean Ryan is likely going to be the starting right guard next year. But, he hasn't played a full season, so we don't know what we're getting out of him. Obviously, he showed a lot, in the couple of plays he played last year. And I think he's going to be a stud for us. But you could definitely add another guy in there for insurance. And I think Mason McCormick is very athletic. This guy is a molar in the run game. And he has great size for the guard position. Now, Mason McCormick is listed at 6'5", 315 pounds. And is 24 years old. Basically, he is an older prospect. But, he doesn't have to be a guy that starts and has to be super young. Like I said, Sean Ryan is likely going to be the starting right guard next year. But you could definitely add a guy like Mason McCormick who could be in there for insurance or just be a depth piece in case guys get hurt. So I think Mason McCormick is very athletic, and I love his mentality that he plays with on the offensive line. He's very physical and just a really good run blocker. This year, he had a 90.8 run block grade, had an 85.4 pass block grade, had a 94.7 zone grade, had a 79.9 gap grade, and had a 71.6 true pass set pass block grade. So very, very good. This year, played in 15 games, 832 offensive snaps, 455 run block snaps, 376 pass block snaps, allowed 0 sacks, 0 hits, and 3 hurries. So very, very dominant. And yes, he is playing from South Dakota State, which doesn't play the best talent week in and week out, but he is very dominant when you watch the tape, and that's what you want to see from someone playing against lesser competition. And I don't really care. We drafted Tucker Kraft last year from South Dakota State, and that dude's a stud. So it is what it is. Tucker Craft. Mason McCormick does get drafted 26% by Packers fans whenever they make mock drafts. So for this mock draft, we are going Mason McCormick. This guy is just very athletic. He has a great mentality and demeanor when he's on the football field, and I love his physicality that he brings as an offensive lineman. So with this pick, at pick 88, we are going Mason McCormick, the guard out of South Dakota State. So here we are, pick 91, and Packers fans, hear me out. We definitely need to get cornerback, but I completely forgot I drafted Javon Bullard, who plays multiple his snaps as a safety in the slot, and Javon Bullard is very good in the slot, so I want to keep him there. We could definitely win with Jerry Jones, who's going to be a slot cornerback in the NFL, but it makes no sense to draft two guys that are going to be doing the same thing. So in this mock draft, I'm not going to go Jerry Jones. The play is probably going to be Cam Hart, who I think is very underrated. This guy is a lockdown cornerback. He's not going to get all the interceptions or picks in the world or anything like that. But this guy is 6'2", 207 pounds, and is 23 years old. And this year he allowed just 15 receptions on 28 targets, 137 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a passer rating of 67.1. He played in 12 games. Like I said, I don't think he's going to get all the pass breakups in the world or all the interceptions. But this dude is going to be a lockdown cornerback. And he reminds me a lot like Jalen Johnson coming out of college. So I think at 126, we're going to go Cam Hart. With this pick, though, we're going to go best player available. And that is going to be Braylon Trice, the edge out of Washington. This dude was super productive these last 2 years at the collegiate level. This year played in 15 games, had 925 defensive snaps, 534 pass rush snaps, 339 run defense snaps, 8 sacks, 19 hurries, 19 hits, 53 hurries, and 1 batted pass. I mean, those 53 hurries, man, are super, super disruptive. That's what you want to see. The previous year, 9 sacks, 15 hits, 46 hurries, and 0 batted passes. So like I said, these last 2 years, he's been super productive. This year, he had a 90.8 pass rush grade, a 72.1 run defense grade, a 91.9 true pass rush grade, and a 17.6 pass rush win rate, and a 6.3 run stop rate. So, in my opinion, he is definitely the best player on the board right now. He's going to be playing, exclusively outside the tackle in the NFL, which is okay. He could be a third down specialist for us. And it's not a bad idea to get another edge rusher. Preston Smith is getting older. Kingsley Nabbari is coming off the torn ACL. And we could definitely add another guy in that room. Braylon Trice is 6'4", 274 pounds, and is 23 years old, so he's fairly young. I just think, it's insane that Braylon Trice is on the board still. This guy at the beginning, of mock season and just draft season in general was getting drafted, inside the top 50 easily. So to see him fall all the way to pick 91 is pretty crazy. And I think this is really good value. So with this pick, we are going Braylon Trice, the edge out of Washington. So here we are, pick 1 away for the Vikings. It's been a minute since we drafted for the Vikings, but with this pick right here, I'm going to go Christian Magny. They definitely need somebody inside in the interior. Blake Brandow is okay, so they could definitely add another guy in there. And I think Christian Magny is a very good, solid guard from Boston College, and he is insane value right here at 108. I know his average draft position is 101, but I think Christian Magny is easily a top 80 prospect in this year's draft class. I think he's a very good guard. This guy's listed at 6'3", 322 pounds. Is basically 24 years old, but I mean, that doesn't really matter. I think he's a guy who could come in right off the bat and be a starter for this team. This year, he had a 74.9 PFF grade, played in 12 games, had 862 offensive snaps, 440 run block snaps, 422 pass block snaps, allowed 0 sacks, 0 hits, and 7 hurries. So very good at pass blocking, very solid in run blocking. I love the physicality he plays with as a guard. Plays with great leverage, solid hand placement on a play-to-play basis. Maybe needs to work on getting off the line quicker, but I think he's a very solid guard for this team. I think this is the pick right here for the Vikings. He does get drafted 8% by the Vikings in mock drafts whenever fans make it. So with this pick, we are following that trend, and we are getting Christian Magny, the guard out of Boston College for the Vikings. So here we are, pick 111 for the Bears, and with this pick, I just want to get another safety in that room for the Bears. Obviously, they have Jaquan Brisker, who's a very good young safety, and Kevin Byard, who's still a very good safety. He is older, though, and then they have Jonathan Owens, who's just a really good depth and rotational safety. But with this pick, we're going to get Tyke Smith, and I think this guy could actually be the long-term starter for the Bears at the safety position. I think him and Jaquan Brisker next to each other would be a very good safety duo. Tyke Smith is very good in the box. He's a very good slot safety. Maybe not the greatest in coverage on a play-to-play basis, but he does show a lot on film. But he's really good at tackling and playing in the box and making run defense plays. Now, Tyke Smith is listed at 5'10", 205 pounds, and is 23 years old. And as it says right here, NFL teams that like to stack the box and be more aggressive on the line of scrimmage will be drawn to Smith's power when setting the edge in run defense. Ultimately, his lack of long speed could cause him issues in coverage. Now, here are the pros and cons for Tyke Smith. Powerful and bigger than most slot cornerbacks, comes with the plus ability to take on blocks and play near the box. Good tackler with some hit power for forcing fumbles. Can set the edge well against tight ends. Good first step explosiveness. And then here are the cons for Tyke Smith. Limited in top speed and cover speed. Was replaced by Kamari Lassiter against Missouri for the Luther Burden matchup. takes some over aggressive pursuit angles that he doesn't have the speed for. Now, Tyke Smith this year had 53 tackles, 14 assisted tackles, and 10 missed tackles, had 17 coverage stops, 10 run stops, 28 receptions on 51 targets, a passer rating of 50.0 allowed, which is solid, nothing crazy, and then 3 touchdowns allowed to 4 interceptions and 2 forcing completions. Now, Tyke Smith does get drafted 13% by Bears fans whenever they make mock drafts. For this mock draft, we are continuing the trend, and I don't think they necessarily need to go out there and get another safety in this year's draft class, but they could definitely go out there and get a guy to develop behind Kevin Byard for a year. And I think Tyke Smith could be the long-term starter at the safety position for the Bears. So with this pick, we are going Tyke Smith, the safety out of Georgia. So here we are at 122 for the Chicago Bears. I know earlier I went Cooper BP, but with this pick, we're going to go Trevor Keegan, the 6'6" guard out of Michigan. And this guy just is very experienced, has a lot of production out of college. Maybe isn't the greatest in terms of an athlete, but he's just a smart player overall. And I do think he fits this team for the Chicago Bears very well. Now, Trevor obviously played on the Michigan team, which won the championship in college. This year, he played in 15 games, had 836 offensive snaps, 454 run block snaps, 382 pass block snaps, allowed 0 sacks, 1 hit, and 10 hurries. And that's playing against, the best of the best in terms of competition. Now, Trevor Keegan does get drafted 17% by Bears fans whenever they make mock drafts. For this mock draft, we are continuing the trend. I think, even though I went Cooper Beebe earlier, it doesn't hurt to get another guy in the interior offensive line for the Bears. Like I said earlier, I think their biggest weakness on the offensive line is the interior. So with this pick, we are going Trevor Keegan, the guard out of Michigan. So here we are at 126 for the Packers. And like I said earlier, we definitely need to address the cornerback position. So with this pick, we're going to go down the board at least 20 spots right here. And we're going to get Cam Hart, who I think is the best cornerback on the board right now. Cam Hart has great size for the cornerback position at 6'2", 207 pounds, and is 23 years old. Still is very young. And the one thing I like about Cam Hart is he's just a very smart cornerback. He's a lockdown cornerback. And I think he's very good in island coverage. Might be more better in a zone-centric scheme, but I do think he's very good at man coverage and shown a lot on film. This year, he played in 12 games, had 572 defensive snaps, had 308 coverage snaps, allowed 15 receptions on 28 targets for 137 yards, 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, and a 67.1 passer rating. I don't think Cam Hart is going to get all the interceptions in the world or all the pass breakups in the world, but one thing this guy will do is lock down a wide receiver 1 or 2. Now, here are the pros and cons for Cam Hart. Fantastic length and size to hold up against press coverage and affect the catch point. Brings a willingness to support in the run defense. Competitive player, good feel for spacing and off coverage from zone. And then here are the cons for Cam Hart. Long speed is a concern, which makes press coverage projection tricky. When receivers get even with him, they create separation. Acceleration is more of a build-up than it is twitchy. Impacts recovery speed. Start and stop ability is just okay given his size. So at 126, we are going to go Cam Hart, and I think he's the best cornerback on the board. We are going down 20 spots to get him, so we might get graded bad for this. But I think Cam Hart, with his size, the way he plays the ball, how technically sound he is, I think he's going to be a fairly solid lockdown cornerback in the NFL. Might not get all the interceptions or pass breakups in the world, but he is going to lock down cornerback 1s and cornerback 2s, and quarterbacks are not going to look his way. So with this pick at 126, we are going Cam Hart. So here we are, pick 129 for the Minnesota Vikings. And with this last pick in the mock draft for the Minnesota Vikings, I just want to get more cornerback depth for them. And with this pick, we're going to go Jarvis Brownlee Jr. I think this guy is very good at man press. I think he has a lot of good mirror techniques and the way he just mirrors wide receivers' movements. Very good in trial technique. Maybe isn't the most imposing dude athletically. Doesn't have the greatest recovery speed. Doesn't have the greatest long speed. But I do think, maybe inside at the slot position or maybe on the boundary, who knows, he could be a very solid cornerback and a good rotational piece for this defense for the Vikings. Now, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is listed at 6 foot, 190 pounds, and is 22 years old. He's fairly young and still has a lot of time to develop. And this year, he allowed 19 receptions on 37 targets, 271 yards, 4 touchdowns allowed, which is honestly a lot, to 1 interception, and a passer rating of 100.2. Now, Jarvis Brownlee this year also had 6 forcing completions, 0 dropped interceptions, 6 coverage stops, 5 missed tackles, and an average depth at target of 13.9. Now, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. does get drafted 7% by Vikings fans whenever they make mock drafts. For this mock draft, we are continuing the trend. I do think he's a fairly good, defensive scheme fit for this team. He's very good in zone coverage. He's very instinctive. I think he is fairly good at man press as well. He's very good at mirroring wide receivers' movements. Like I said, isn't the most imposing dude athletically. Only around 6 foot, 190 pounds. Isn't that fast either. Doesn't have that great recovery speed. But I think he is fairly sound technically wise. Maybe he doesn't play the ball super well. Maybe gives up too many touchdowns and too many deep yards. but he does make up for it with some really good plays on film here and there. So with this pick at 129, we are going with Jarvis Brownlee Jr., and he could just be a good rotational piece at the quarterback position for the Vikings. So here we are, pick 134. I mean, I was looking at 111. Here we are, pick 134 for the Bears. And I mean, there's nothing really I have to attack. We could go with just best player available. I was thinking of Theo Johnson, who killed it at the combine for a tight end. I was just thinking of 2 tight end sets with Theo Johnson and Cole Kmet. But I think with this pick, I'm going to go Mekhi Wingo. He's more of a project player on the defensive line. But I think this guy is very, very good. And he's one of the more elite guys in terms of defensive alignment at getting the quarterback and causing pressure inside. And I think I have a stat that'll probably pop up right now where like 53% of the runs that were running towards him didn't get like any yards or actually got less or negative yards. So that is an insane stat. I think that was the highest out of every defensive lineman in this year's draft class. So with this pick for the Bears, we're just going to get more guys on the defensive line, and that is Mekhi Wingo, the defensive lineman out of LSU. Maybe a bit undersized at 6'1", 295 pounds, but he's only 21 years old. He's only going to get better, and this guy plays with some insane leverage. He's very quick off the line, and he has great hand usage as well. Now, here are the pros and cons for Mekhi Wingo. Quick off the snap, violent push-pull move, hand speed and placement are effective, helps make up for shorter arms. Low and loaded stance before the snap allow him to fire off the ball with power and leverage. And then here are the cons for Mekhi Wingo. Shorter strides make up for quick steps, but less ground covered. Gets moved out of gaps and turned around too easily. Stiff to change direction. And Mekhi Wingo does get drafted 13% by Bears fans whenever they make mock drafts. For this mock draft, we are continuing the trend. I just think this is really good depth for the Bears. He is only 21 years old. He has a lot of time to develop, and he could possibly, be the, starting defensive lineman on this team for many, many years if developed right. I do think Mekhi Wingo is fairly underrated in this year's draft class. I do think he could be a diamond in the rough for one of these teams in the later rounds for defensive lineman. So with this pick, we are going Mekhi Wingo. We could have went with a guy like T'Vondre Sweat, but I just think Mekhi Wingo is a better overall prospect, and I think he's, if developed right, I think he has a higher ceiling than a guy like T'Vondre Sweat. So with this pick, we are going Mekhi Wingo, the defensive lineman out of LSU. So unfortunately, I really can't show you guys all the picks I made for every team, but we could look at the first round. Obviously, the first pick, we did go Caleb Williams for the Bears, the franchise quarterback for that team. At the third pick, we made the trade up for the Vikings, and we got Drake May. I think he fits this offensive scheme for Kevin O'Connell super, super well. I think him and Justin Jefferson could be a very good duo for many, many years. Then our next pick, which was at, where are we at right here? 25, I believe, yeah. Oh, no, 22, actually, yeah, 22. We got Laiatu Latu because we traded down from pick 9 with the Eagles. Picked up a bunch of picks for the Bears. Got Laiatu Latu, who I think is the best pass rusher in this, draft class. I think that's an A-plus pick right there to get him at pick 22. Then at pick 25, we went Jerzon Newen for my Packers. Could have went with the cornerback, but we did get one later on in this year's draft class. And I think Jerzon Newen is just the best defensive player in this year's draft class. Then at pick 29, the Detroit Lions got their best player, their fan favorite player in Kool-Aid McKinstry. A lot Lions fans really do want Kool-Aid McKinstry. And I think him on the other side of Carlton Davis is going to be a phenomenal duo at the cornerback position. So let me know what you guys think about this mock draft for the NFC North. What picks you would have made, what picks you wouldn't have made. It's been your boy Sports Culture. I'm out.